Shalom. First and foremost, giving all praise, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakaha Kodash. Double honor to the beloved apostles and elders of Great Millstone, better known as GMS, who rule well. Peace and salutations unto the hopeful elect, the tabernacle of David, beginning with the 144,000 and the rest of the men, women, and children out of the 12 tribes, whom Yahweh Bashem, Yahweh Shai will ultimately have mercy upon. I'm your brother Matazabath, back again with another lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem, Yahweh Shai. And Abarat is our Lord's will. This is edifying, straight to the point. And this is going to be a part two take on doing this lesson over again for the second time. As the first time I uploaded it, there was no sound. So I do sincerely apologize to the Akim and a few sisters learning. And hopefully this time you'll be able to hear the audio. So without further ado, just to give you some context, we've already seen this, sit down back and forth between Ron Dalton and Bishop Nate from the Iuic'S. And there seems to be some confusion on doctrine. And so the purpose of my lesson is I want you to see, because I don't think other brethren have caught this, but I've actually caught what Bishop Nathaniel tried to do. And I also informed Brother Yashar, the main camp here in Australia. All right, brother located in Brisbane. Subscribe to his channel so that you can be edified, which is GMS down under Australia. All right. And basically, you're going to see the different doctrine that Bishop Nathaniel is bringing. All right. And you're going to see what I mean in just a second. So I'm going to stop talking and let's roll the footage.
Okay, Europeans and Caucasians are Edomites, correct?
Yep.
So how did you explain to us who are the descendants today of Japheth's sons, Gomer, Magog, Meshach, Tubal, and Togarmah? You did not explain that.
A lot of those, yes, I can explain.
He just explained it.
Now, for those who don't know, and if you would like that understanding, we have many lessons going into that breakdown in Ezekiel, the 38th chapter, which he's actually referencing. And to keep it short, sweet, and simple, today, when you talk about Gomar, Togarmah, those ancient names, all right, today, the nation of Edom is now occupying those lands. And why is that? Because of prophecy. All right. For instance, if we get the book of real quick. All right. Nope. And let me put this on KJV. Let's get the book of Psalms 49 and 11. Back to the basics. Now, this is speaking of the Edomites, which today is the so-called white T-man. All right. Or as I like to call them, the Cajuns of Ka. It says their inward thought is that their houses shall continue forever, and their dwelling places to all generations. They call their lands after their own names, because you have to understand the blessing that was passed down unto Esau from his father Isaac. When you go back to Genesis 25, or 27, let's visit that for a moment. All right, and this is what was told. All right, Genesis 27. And I'm going to just get straight to the point, verse 39. And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, Behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of heaven from above. And by thy sword shalt thou live, and shalt serve thy brother. And it shall come to pass, when thou shalt have dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. So the point in the blessing was that when Esau came into power, he was going to have the fatness of the earth and of the dew of heaven. The first time the Edomites came into power, when you get the Apocrypha, was under Alexander the Greek. All right. First Maccabees 1:1. And it happened after that. Alexander, the son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Kittim, has smitten Darius, the king of the Persians and the Medes, that he reigned in his stead the first over Greece. Now, to trace Alexander, when you trace his lineage, the Macedonians, they were Edomites. And how do we know that? Because Haman, who was a Macedonian, all right, when you go to the editions, and this is why the Apocrypha is so crucial, all right, Haman was called a Macedonian, right? This is the additions to Esther chapter 7 and verse 10. It says, for Ammon, a Macedonian, the son of Amadatha, being indeed a stranger from the Persian blood, and far distant from our goodness, and as a stranger received of us. All right. So who were the Macedonians? Well, when you go back to the Old Testament and you go to the book of Esther, and I believe it's the 3rd chapter. Yeah. All right. It also tells you that here, Esther 3:1, after these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Amadatha, the Agagite. So the Macedonians were Agagites, which when you look up Agagite, all right, it goes back to King Agag, which he was the king over the Amalekites. All right. So it says Agagite, I will overtop, right? And when you go back to the root etymology, Agag, okay, king of Amalek, okay, Salakia. There it is right there. Okay, Amalek Kittish king. All right. So the Agag, they go back to the Amalekites, which Amalek is the grandson of Esau Edom. Okay, he is the chief of the Edomites. He's the chief tribe of the Edomites. All right, this is how we track the lineages. Okay, so that's very important to understand. So what happened when we go back to First Maccabees? This started the Esau's getting the fatness of the earth, right? Verse 2, it says, and made many wars and won many strongholds and slew the kings of the earth and went through to the ends of the earth and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted and his heart was lifted up. So this thus began the conquering of Esau Edom. It started with Alexander the Great. This is when the Edomites first came into power. And so prior to them coming into power, they took over Japheth's land, Greece. All right, because prior to them taking over, the true Grecians, which is which goes back to one of the sons, Javan. When you look up Javan, all right, it's important to know this history. Let's go to Genesis 10, verse 2. The sons of Japheth, Gomer and Magog and Madai and Javan and Tubal, Meshach and Tiras. When you go into Javan, all right, you have the Hebrew word Yawan, okay, which is Ionia or Greece. Now, we always go into this. The Ionians, when you look them up, it goes back to the Minoans. And who were the Minoans? They were the Cretians. They lived in they dwelt in Crete and also in Greece, okay, and they were cousins to the Etruscans. Okay, we always bring out this information, and I've got lessons going into this, so I'm just kind of, breezing through it so you get to understand it. So when you deal with the Etruscans and the Minoans, today they make up your Polynesians. Okay, for instance, like you have your Tongans, Samoans, Hawaiians, Aborigine Australians, Fijians. All right, those people. Okay, they all go back to these ancient names. All right. And so what happened was Esau, beginning with Alexander the Great, he took over Japheth's land. This is something that Ron Dalton doesn't understand. He took over Japheth's land. All right. That's why we read, going back to Psalms, read it one more time, the 11th verse and the 49th chapter. Their inward thought is that their houses shall continue forever and their dwelling places to all generations. They call their lands after their own names. This is also why the prophecy states in Isaiah 14 and 21, where it says, prepare slaughter for his children for the iniquity of their fathers, that they do not rise nor possess the land, nor fill the face of the world with cities. Because right now, do they not possess the face of the world? Remember, Esau's blessing was he would have the fatness of the earth and the dew of heaven. That's why, beginning with your top banking elite families, They own everything in the world. They have the best of everything because this is their blessing on this side. But the prophecy states that, their children is going to suffer for the iniquity of the fathers because guess what? You are of your fathers coming back into regeneration, reincarnation, and more so than ever, all right, is going to be done because they're not going to possess the land. They're not going to fill up the cities. Okay, because everywhere they've conquered, let's go to Micah 2:2. It says, and they covet fields, right? Whenever Esau wants to take over the land, what's the first thing that they do? Whoever is in control in terms of sitting in that politician's seat, they'll try to make that politician look bad to the public view, right? And then they'll do something. They'll either unalive him just to get him out of office, and then 9 times out of 10, they'll put in a puppet who's going to do the bidding of the elites, the bankers. Okay, we've seen this movie play out time and time. Look at what happened with Saddam Hussein. Okay, that's just to name one. Okay, look at what they did in what was it, Haiti during the time of the C-19. Okay, when they didn't want to use the JABSs, and they said that they was just going to rely on their resources, and then look what happened. He got unalived. See, when you don't follow the script of what the elites are doing to run the world and the propaganda that they spread in MSM, these are the things that happens. So it says, and they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man in his house, even a man in his heritage. And that's what Esau did to Japheth's land. They started with Greece. They took over the Greek islands. Okay, Kittim, which is Cyprus today, all of Europe. All right, that's why they call themselves Europeans, but they are not the true Europeans. Okay, they go back to Mount Seir, okay, which is located in Petra, Jordan today. All right, and once again, it's very important to understand this. People don't know the history. Okay, so now when it talks about even a man and his heritage, part of our heritage is not just based upon where we come, the language that we speak, and who we are as an ethnicity, but it also goes into our land. All right. Because the scripture says, Deuteronomy 32:8, it says, when the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance, meaning their lands. All right. Esau was even given his portion of the land. When he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel. Right. This is why also in the law, when you get Deuteronomy, the 19th chapter in the 14th verse, it says, thou shalt not remove thy neighbor's landmark, which they of old time have set in thine inheritance. You see that? Which thou shalt inherit in the land that Yahweh thy power giveth thee to possess it. So the Lord has set up and given us everything. That's why when you go back to Genesis, the 10th chapter, Japheth was given the isles. Okay. When you go into the word isles, we bring this up all the time. You have the Hebrew word ayah. Okay. Which means a coast, island, shore, region. Okay. And when you go into this and you go to the Jacinian's Hebrew Chaldee lexicon, here at the bottom, it says the Indian archipelago is to be understood. Now, the people that are surrounding the Indian archipelago is speaking of the Polynesians and stuff. That's how we can link them to being the sons of Japheth. I've already covered this information. Okay, just do your own research. We've already got lessons on this. Okay, so that takes care of that part. All right, so now let's come back to the lesson because I just wanted to cover that and go back to the basics of that understanding on how Esau has taken over these lands. So when we go into things like Ezekiel, the 38th chapter, and it speaks about Gog, Magog, and all of that, that's really talking about Esau, Edom, because he's taken over those lands. This is something that Ron Dalton doesn't understand. He doesn't understand prophecy. All right, so let's get back to it. Take this back a little bit.
Okay,
Yep.
your parting shot, Ron.
Okay, Europeans and Caucasians are Edomites, correct?
Yep.
So how did you explain to us who are the descendants today of Japheth's sons, Gomer, Magog, Meshach, Tubal, and Togarmah? You did not explain
A lot,
that.
a lot of those, yes, I
So
can
He
explain it.
just explained it.
If you get
go
history
ahead.
books, it shows that
Go
those
ahead.
are
We're
the
waiting.
sons, many of the Polynesians, the Hawaiians, many of them of Thailand, a lot of them, that's them. Because when you look at the
You
archaeology,
just
they
did a
are brown.
video.
You heard what he said? Now, I got to give credit where credit is due based upon this setting of the conversation Bishop Nathaniel was having with Ron Dalton. Now, Bishop was correct. When you the Polynesians, all right, the Tongans, the Fijians and stuff, they are the seed of Japhet. Now, do you have some of our people that are mingled amongst them? Absolutely. That's why we can't judge based upon appearance. You have to judge a righteous judgment. You have to judge through the spirit. Okay. But the main point is the Pacific Islanders, they are not of the 12 tribes of Israel. Now, why do I say that? Because listen to what Bishop just said.
Polynesians, the Hawaiians, many of them of Thailand, a lot of them, that's them.
When he says that's them, he's speaking of they are the seed of Japhet, right? Now, that's correct. However, what has not been shown is this. When you go on to IUIC's website, all right, and we're going to go to the second tab where it says learn the truth. And then we're going to go to the second tab here where it says the 12 tribes of Israel. We're going to click on that and I'm going to show you something. We're going to come down to the tribe of Naphtali and we're going to show you what they are teaching to their congregation. All right. Now look at this. It says the mighty tribe of Naphtali. It says Middle Ages name, Arawak Indians and Gauchos. All right. Which is correct. Present day name, Argentinian, Chilean. And look what they've added. Pacific Islanders. So wait a minute. But you just said to Ron Dalton that the Pacific Islanders, which when you look up Pacific Islanders, all right, let's go to Google and you type in Pacific Islanders. It tells you Pacific Islanders encompass the indigenous people of Polynesia, Micronesia, and Melanesia, the major subregions of Oceania. Okay, which includes your Hawaiian, Samoan, Tonga, okay, Papua New Guinea, all of that. Right. And we're going to show you that this cannot be. But when you go down into their website, this is their reason of teaching this to their congregation. Now, they use the passage in Deuteronomy 33 and 23, which says, and of Naphtali, he said, O Naphtali, satisfied with favor and full with the blessing of Yahweh, possess thou the west and the south. All right. Now, remember in 2nd Esdras, the 13th chapter, it was said that the northern kingdom was going to come to a land where never mankind dwelt, which means it was never governed. And the land that they came to was the Americas. OK, they started in South America. Right now, this is what IUIC teaches. It says, satisfied with favor and full of blessing of the Lord, meaning they would dwell of rich, beautiful islands. Right. It says, possess thou the west. The Pacific Ocean is west of South America. And the south, meaning the South Sea, aka the Pacific Ocean. That's not what it's talking about. It says the Melanesian Islands are a sub-region of Oceania in the southwestern Pacific Ocean, and they are generally located to the west and south of the Pacific region. Now, there's only one problem with that, because remember, see where it says Melanesian Islands? Now, when we read Genesis, the 10th chapter, and remember we looked up the word isles of the Gentiles, right? And you have the Hebrew word ayah, which talks about coast, island, and shore. Remember, we ran into Jacinius Hebrew lexicon, and notice at the bottom here it says Indian archipelago. Now, when you type in Indian archipelago, all right, it says the Indian archipelago can refer to several different groupings of islands, right? Now, what they don't tell you is the Indian archipelago also goes into, as you see down here, Malay archipelago, right? So when you type in Malay archipelago, this is what it says. The Malay archipelago is the archipelago between mainland Southeast Asia and Australia, and it is also called Inso-India or Indo-Australian archipelago. The name was taken from the 19th century European concept of a Malay race, which is what Esau called it, later based on the distribution of Austronesian languages. Okay? Now, the Austronesian, when you look up Austronesians, it says the Austronesian people, sometimes referred to as Austronesian speaking peoples, are a large group of peoples who have settled in Taiwan, maritime Southeast Asia, parts of mainland Southeast Asia, Micronesia, coastal New Guinea, island Melanesia, Polynesia, and Madagascar that speak Austronesian languages. These are the Isles of the Gentiles. This is why we tell you that Pacific Islanders are not of the 12 tribes. The Austronesian goes back to the Malay archipelago, which is synonymous with the Indian archipelago, which is the Hebrew word ayah, which goes back to the Isles. Okay, this is why, Salakia, when you come back, okay, these islands, okay, were given to Japhet, but it started in Europe. Okay, and what happened? Esau, when he came into power, he kicked, all right, these Japhetic sons out. Now, to prove what I'm saying, to prove further what I'm saying, let me open up a new tab. Let's go into secular history real quick, just to prove what I'm saying. Now, this is a website, realhistorywww.com. Okay, this is free. Anybody can look this information up. Now we're going to come over here to the Japhites, and we're going to look up the Etruscans, Etria, and we're going to show you something. This is secular history. So you see this terracotta relief statue looks like your modern day Polynesians today, because they were these people. They were the Etruscans, also known as the Minoans. And I bring this out every time. Now, let's read a little history of what happened to them getting kicked out of their lands by Esau Edom. It says, we're going to read here. Actually, you know what? I'll read this whole passage. When last we left Etria, we were mystified by the Etruscans' policy of not helping each other when faced with a common threat. This incredible policy would, of course, have devastating effects. And moving ahead to perhaps 1100 BC, it is at about this time that albino people from the Eurasian plains, now called the Latins, later known as the Romans, migrate in. Now, who were these albino people he's referring to? They're talking about the Edomites, because when you look up who the Romans were, okay, okay, here it is right here. You can find this on Amazon. It says the Roman Empire, the empire of the Edomite. Okay, so when it talks about the albino people, that's generally what it's talking about. Esau, Edom. You see? So, Salakia, missed my placing. So let's come back here. So it says these Latins may have accompanied the Hellenes into Greece and then continue on into Italy. The nature of the early contact between two peoples is unknown, but the later relationship is well known to be one of violence. It says, please remember that we are using the term Latins and Hellenes in reference to Eurasian albinos as a convenience only. All right, so he's just speaking in code. Soon after the invasion of whites from Eurasia began, okay, Esau, Edom coming in, all right, and taking over the lands. It says a coalition of the original black inhabitants of Italy, which is your Japhetic sons, all right, Greece and Aegean area, because the true Grecians were of dark skin color. It says formed a conglomeration called the Sea People. Are not Polynesians today known as Sea People? Let's look it up if we can. Let's come over here and let's type in were Polynesians known as Sea People. Or I should have typed in a seafaring people. And AI says, yes, Polynesians were renowned as highly skilled and experienced seafarers. Their voyages and settlements across the vast Pacific Ocean are a testament to their sophisticated navigation and seafaring abilities. They developed unique techniques, including memorizing entire sky charts and using stars for navigation to travel across vast distances, man. You see? So this lines up with, because the Etruscans, they were known as a sea people. It says they boarded ships with all of their belongings and fled the area. Why did they flee the area? Because Esau took over. He came in and took over the land. It says, but those that stayed behind still had to deal with the white newcomers. You see, this is secular history, man. Today, these will be your Polynesians, your Fijians, Tongans. Okay, these are those people back in the ancient time, man. That's why they ended up in the South Pacific Sea, because they were pushed out of their lands from Europe. It's plain as day. And this is only for those people who can discern through the spirit, because everybody's not going to be able to pick this up. You can try to refute this information all you want to, but the truth is the truth, man. Right? So my question is this, and we're going to wrap up. He said that the people today, this is Bishop Nathaniel I'm referring to. He said that the people today, or those people that Ron Dalton called out, is the Polynesians and everything, which goes back to the seed of Japhet. He's absolutely correct. But why is it that on your website, you have here that the Pacific Islanders are a part of the 12 tribes of Israel, and you're calling them the tribe of Naphtali? That's incorrect. The Pacific Islanders do not come from the tribe of Naphtali, because we just proved through secular history and by looking up some words, okay, in the Hebrew and tracking the lineage, okay, they go back to the seed of Japhet, man. So this guy is preaching to his congregation that has on his website that they are a part of the 12 tribes, but yet you bring out something totally different when Ron Dalton called you out. So what does the scripture say about that? Let's get some precepts and we'll close out. So I'm going to type in because this is why Apostle Tahar always brings this out. Proverbs 24 and 21. It says, my son, fear thou Yahweh and the king, and meddle not with them that are given to change. And that's IUIC. They're constantly changing their doctrine. OK, the Lord is not dealing with confusion, because the scriptures tells you that the Heavenly Father on down to his son, Yahweh Shai, is not the author of confusion. Now, in the Apocrypha, it tells us, OK, that you're supposed to be, let me see here, steadfast understanding. No, that's not it. How does it go? The phrase goes, I know it's in the book of Sirach. Give me 1 second. Let me see here. Is it, let me see. Yep, here it is right here. Sirach 5 and 10. It says, be steadfast in thy understanding, and let thy word be the same. Let your word be the same. Don't change up. Don't change the doctrine. Don't teach something totally different. But then when you get, called out on the spot, then you change it up and then you tell the truth. But then you have something totally different put out on your website. Your word is supposed to be the same in and out, man. Right? Let's get Romans 16 and 17. Now beseech you, brethren, mark them which cause divisions and offenses contrary to the doctrine which ye have learned, and avoid them. This is the reason why we keep calling out IUIC, man, because they come with this BS, man. Their word is not the same. So you can't get mad at Great Millstone for when we call out these things, because we see right through it. You know? So that's pretty much it. I just wanted to touch on that. You know, I don't want really long. All right. But I just wanted to show you, brothers, that that was something that caught my attention, because he said one thing in this video, but then on their website, OK, they have something totally different. What is this all about right here? What is this all about? You need to explain that. All right. So anyway, all right. If any one of you brothers want to go further into this, you can, but I'm going to leave it there. And I want to give all praise, glory, and honor be to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakah HaKodash. Double honors once again to the beloved apostles and elders of Great Millstone, better known as GMS, who rule well. Peace and salutations unto the hopeful elect, the tabernacle of David. It's on to the next, Lord's will. Shalom.